live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever to Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time, on the dot tonight, too. Gruesome twosome back again. Big shout out to Dominic Guanzon for hosting the show tonight, filling in for Joe. I know Joe is disappointed that he cannot be here to talk about this movie too, but he did review it on Letterboxd. If you want to go check that out, we do. I don't mention it. I probably should make it a part of the opening monologue of the show. But we do have our social medias on the side panel of this broadcast. I should make mention of that. I guess it's kind of self-explanatory, but what?
Oh, actually, you know what? Specifically today, we don't.
Specifically tonight, we don't. Specifically, oh man, tonight's going great. Reminds me of Laszlo from GTA. I think Liberty City Stories.
Yes.
When he gets like 2 prank calls in a row and goes, "This show is going great." But anyway, though, yeah, we do. Typically, we're going to go to the old video setup when Dom is hosting and stuff. But Joe's got the more latest setup that has our Twitter handles and our Letterboxd accounts and stuff like that. So feel free to give us a follow and whatnot. You can take a look at Joe's review of Naked Gun up there, too. What he generally does is he's going to be a part of Sleepless. Obviously, he's a co-host. If he's out a particular week, he will publish the review right after he sees the movie or a day after. Specifically for me, though, he knows I'm on Letterboxd a lot, so he won't publish the review or log the movie till Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So I love that he does that. Me, I don't care. I'm like, immediately I got to vomit my thoughts out on a particular movie. He'll take his time with that. But tonight's Naked Gun, brand new Liam Neeson comedy. Next week, God, I can't wait for this. It's Catherine and I are seeing it tomorrow. Is Zach Cregger's Weapons, which last I checked, and I have been, I got to take a bow. I have been so good at avoiding shit for this movie. It's not even funny. I can't remember a movie, the last movie I tried to avoid everything possible for and have succeeded. The only thing I checked was the Rotten Tomatoes score, and it's at 100% still. Like, it's insane. I haven't read a single word of any review, though, but that's next week on the show. Cannot wait to talk about that movie. We didn't review Barbarian on the show several years ago, back in 2022. I can't speak for Weapons. I do think that's just going off of what little I know about it. I do think it's going to be a wildly different movie than Barbarian. I'd love to know your thoughts, Don. If I knew you would be able to sleep for the rest of the week, I would love to know your thoughts on Barbarian. Because that movie is nuts. That movie it's great. It made my top 10 that year. But it is kind of a nasty movie.
The only thing I can really say about it is that Zach Cregger, who is the director of Barbarian and Weapons, I can happily say that it lends itself to the adage that if you can master comedy, you can master pretty much any other genre. Obviously, that's not 100% accurate in all cases, but it really hits off with this because I am terrified to see either of those movies, and I am purposely taking off next week just so, well, okay, 2 reasons. Is that 1, I want to see a show, but 2 is I do not want to watch that movie. I told these gentlemen like a couple months ago where it's like, hey, I might have to take a conscientious objector for this movie because I am not watching it. It looks terrifying. That's how good the trailer is.
You know your limits. I take off, or I was gonna say I take off Superman. You take off Weapons. You know your limits. Now I will say I'm so happy for Cregger's success. I remember it wasn't like something I watched often. I've watched it more now, in retrospect. But Whitest Kids You Know has aged really well. I think the dynamic qualities of him and Moore and that team, that whole troupe, really shine through. The writing is so smart in those sketches. Even the stupid ones, even the ones that were clearly like kind of just a 1-sentence summary, have a real like pithy quality to them, a really successful pithy. It's just a damn shame. Like, I know that like Keegan-Michael Key, I mean, maybe he does behind the scenes, but I don't think Keegan Michael Key has a very significant role when it comes to Jordan Peele's movies. I think Peele might maybe bounce ideas off of him or something like that. But I feel like Peele's movies are very much his works. I don't know how much collaboration he really has in the writing department. Which is, I wonder if Trevor Moore was still with us, what kind of role he would have with Kreger's horror movies. We're never going to know. But I wondered that when Barbarian came out. I wondered, like, because Moore died in 2021. I was like, he had to have known he was working on this.
Yeah.
And had to at least have had some input. The movie, I believe, is dedicated to him, too. So it's just there's like this undercurrent of sadness. I really feel for Zach Kreger. He hasn't spoken very publicly about it, but I do think the loss of Moore really, really hit him, especially just the bizarre fucking way it happened. He fell off a balcony. You know what I mean? Just a bizarre
total home accident. One of those things where I have an uncle that fell off a ladder and died while doing Christmas lights. It's just one of those things where it's like, Jesus Christ, it's the simplest things that you don't think about. I mean, even at least a car crash is cool, no, but like in terms of the biggest tragedy, I mean, look, obviously the death, but like
car crash, you might have somebody to blame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But with Trevor Moore, it's sad because it's like he never got to see the success of Barbarian. He never got to see his friend have that success. And that's what's heartbreaking to me. Obviously, none of us are involved with their personal lives, so we don't really have a right to say any of this. But growing up on that troupe, like they are, and they say a lot of shit. I've seen a lot of their stuff where it's like, yeah, that didn't really age all that well, but I think for the most part they're with it. They would still be with it. You can tell that through the works that but rather the way that they handle their YouTube channel. I don't know if you've been keeping up. If you follow the Whitest Kids You Know YouTube channel, they're just re-uploading all their stuff officially, so it's no longer YouTube rips, MP4 rips or whatever, and they're just renaming the videos with like topical things that are happening in the news. So, for instance, when the United States bombed Iran, they reposted the Moon Bear sketch, which the Moon Bear sketch ends with, hold on, because they're talking to the White House press secretary, and they're like, hold on, are we invading Iran today? And the guy's like, you got me. It's not Moon Bears. I almost had you guys, and that was brilliant end to that sketch. Absolutely love it. And it's also we're also running into a thing because for the longest time, the internet would only part of the appeal of Whitest Kids You Know is kind of like the underground quality of them, because you couldn't unless you had money and bought the DVDs or whatever. You couldn't. There was no place to actually watch the sketches. They weren't allowed. I'm assuming they weren't allowed to post them online because they had a TV deal, which good for them. I'm not blaming them.
Do you remember what network? Do you remember what network they were on?
I vaguely do, because it would be at the bottom right of all of the YouTube all of the rips.
IFC.
That's it. That's exactly what it was.
Because we actually, growing up with DirecTV, we had the IFC channel.
Okay.
That's how I found them, was just like scrolling through the guide. It was IFC.
It was that, or like, and then also like Fusion or something like that.
Fuse. I think it was Fuse TV.
And every now and then you'll see a comment where it's like, it's weird watching this in 1080p without the Fuse logo on the bottom left.
No, it's true, because Fuse was a basic cable network, and that was like second run syndication. IFC was like a premium fucking channel. Like IFC was one of those channels. I don't even know like why my parents did this, because they had DirecTV since like 93. But even before I found my love of movies, we had all the movie channels: HBO, Cinemark, Stars, or Cinemax, excuse me, Stars, Encore, Showtime, TMC, and IFC, and Sundance. There was an IFC and Sundance network. And it was funny. We just stayed in Catherine and I just stayed in a hotel in Winterset, and it was funny because they had DirecTV at the hotel. They didn't have IFC and Sundance, and I'm like, so this is like a package on top of a package. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm like, that just wasn't included with the movie channel. So I'm like, there weren't many households back in the day that actually saw those episodes new. I think a lot of people might think retroactively, those who may have just discovered this show that it was on Comedy Central, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people assume that, but honestly, that underground quality probably helped them. I mean, I'm sure they would have loved the ultra mainstream attention, but also it really gives a memory to those days of the internet. And I'm very happy to report that for I think 90% of their sketches, they still hold up. And even those 10% where it's like, okay, sure, they say a spicy word that probably shouldn't say today, but you know what? It's they haven't doubled down. They haven't. I don't think they need to apologize for anything. I think there is a tacit agreement where it's like, okay, as long as you acknowledge one, as long as it wasn't egregious even at the time, and two, as long as you weren't being a dick, and three, as long as you're like not doubling down and going on Joe Rogan's podcast to complain about how comedy is dead, then it's fine. It's whatever. We're cool about it, right? We're not actively trying to cancel anyone. Just keep making more funny stuff, and that's what the whitest kids you know, for the most part, did, right?
I love this little tangent we went on. To bring it full circle, though, to the Naked Gun.
Yeah, because that's why I'm happy to talk about this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. To bring it full circle to the Naked Gun, those who didn't go so far into the realm of critical thinking that they don't understand. And I think this is a very small number of people. We talk about, or like people talk about, like, outrage culture and people getting mad over like Sydney Sweeney's fucking jean ad or something like that. I think a lot of it is really not. It's not manufactured, but it's like pulling at a thread in a sweater. Like, you know what I mean?
It really is trumped up. Sure. Like, look, is there a Blue Sky user out there that does a whole freaking essay and then they get like 12 likes, but then a news station picks up, or like some publication picks up on it, amplify it by 10,000 viewers, and then other places amplify it, and now it's like millions of viewers. Yeah, for the most part, I don't think there's really these witch hunts going on.
No, I don't either. I think it's a lot of bullshit. And I also, though, what I was getting at too is that, like, I think as a culture, like, and especially when things like South Park can still run so successfully, like, how I'm trying to put it, like, satire isn't, and behavior in movies and media is not always endorsement. Mm-hmm. And that is what I think is lost. It's the subtlety that's lost. I mean, to bring it back to the Naked Gun, we're talking about a movie that does drop the R word in a very funny joke,
in a funny way, and it's smart writing because it's acknowledged in the joke that it's kind of messed up. So it's like, yeah, great, awesome. I laughed at that joke. It was great.
A lot of people forget that the Black Eyed Peas song "Let's Get It Started" is the clean version. I mean,
did learn about that after the fact.
Did you not know that?
I like a couple of years after the fact. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, because on that original album, it's "Let's Get Retarded." That's the original version of the song. It's kind of like the Snoop Dogg song, "Sensual Seduction." That's the clean version of the song.
Sure.
The original, so that's the one that was on the radio and everything like that.
Yeah.
The original version is "Sexual Eruption," but the clean version became more popular than the uncensored version because it was just more like playable in that way. But yeah, to bring it back to the Naked Gun, though, this is a movie I think we as a collective, even Joe, we were looking forward to from the jump. This is not the first attempt to bring the Naked Gun back. There was 2 previous attempts to make this movie. The first was a potential TV movie with the late, great Leslie Nielsen. It was going to be called, and I learned about this when I was writing my review, it was originally going to be called, listen to this, The Naked Gun, What? The number 4, question mark, What for, question mark, Rhythm of Evil. And it was supposed to be kind of like, looking back on it, it's like they took the plot of that and still used it as the basis of this, because it was going to be about Leslie Nielsen's Frank Drebin character training an understudy and then giving the police squad to a new generation. That was canceled for budgetary reasons. I think they slashed the budget. And I think they didn't want to pay Nielsen. I think that's what it was. Sure. I think they wanted him in a cameo. Then there was originally going to be, and I think this could have worked. It would have really depended on the writer. Ed Helms was attached to a Naked Gun reboot back in like post Hangover 2, I think it was. Yeah. And That might have worked. It really depends on who you get as the writers for
Yeah.
this thing too, as we see, I think, with this one. And then finally, we get this version, which was a long passion project of Seth MacFarlane, who's a producer on this movie. And I think might be a story credit or have at least contributed to the story in meaningful
There's no
ways.
way he didn't throw in a joke in there, just in passing in
Oh,
the hallway. Or
easily.
it's like, hey, what about this one?
Easily. The main name though, this movie's written by three people. It's Dan Greger, who actually actually collaborated with Kiva Schaffer, the director, another co-writer on this movie, on Chippendale Rescue Rangers, which we did review on the show back in the day. That was Schaefer's last movie. Doug Mann, Dan Greger, and Akiva Schaffer, the writers of this movie, directed by Akiva Schaffer. Schaffer, I think, has been one of the most dynamic, one of the only in the modern day dynamic voices in comedy movie making, too. He is 1/3 of The Lonely Island alongside Andy Samberg and Jorma Taccone. He has been the one to direct a lot. And I think he started directing some of the music videos back in the day, and that's where he really got it. He's become the filmmaker of the bunch. Andy Samberg's kind of become the actor. Akiva Schaffer's become the writer, director, and Jorma Taccone has kind of become like the far-flung correspondent slash cameo slash writer bit of it. And I've always liked Jorma too. I don't feel like he gets enough credit for what he does. But Schaefer, though, is the director of this new Naked Gun movie, this Lego sequel to the Naked Gun series. And man, is this just a good time. There was a lot of reasons to be excited for this movie just based on what we were being fed information. Akiva Schaffer being attached to direct and co-write. Liam Neeson being the new Frank Drebin Jr., the son of Leslie Nielsen. One of the only examples I do think this is one of my personal conspiracies. Do you think they cast Liam Neeson just because his name is so close to Leslie Nielsen?
I think that was look. I think that's purely incidental, but one of the great incidentals of cinema, just because and this kind of goes into my point, which is that Leslie Nielsen is perfect for this role. He is following in the footsteps. They couldn't have picked a better person to follow in the footsteps.
Liam Neeson, you mean? You said Leslie
yeah, exactly.
Nielsen.
Yeah, there you go. Like, could not have followed better in the footsteps of Leslie Nielsen, just because they are both. It's mirrored, right? They were both action stars. You could very well argue that Liam Neeson was the more successful one. I mean, Liam Neeson has the Oscar right? He has the Oscar for Schindler's List.
Yes.
Yes, and just accomplished serious actors in their own right, and that lends itself so much to their comedy flip. And if anything, it's the opposite of what I was talking about earlier, where if you master comedy, you can master anything else. In this case, that's because like Leslie Nielsen, I believe that was more not stunt casting, but more so like the sardonicism sold itself so much more in Airplane. Because I believe that was Leslie Nielsen's first comedic role.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a drama actor, a Western actor. He was in the Poseidon Adventure. So he kind of had a career similar to Liam Neeson in that he did a lot of serious roles. And then when he did Airplane and kind of brought that sort of deadpan conviction to comedy, it just worked. He was very funny without straining to be. Very handsome actor too, like Liam Neeson. Very handsome, very dapper. Didn't mind being the butt of the joke. And there's a lot of reasons we can talk about why Naked Gun works, why this new Naked Gun works, at least in my opinion. I technically don't know what you have to say. But I think one of the coolest things about this and why Liam Neeson is really successful in the role is because of the fact that if you really want to look at it, like, I mean, the new generation, I think, kind of believes that Liam Neeson has always been an action star, which has
That's true.
really not been the case. He has had a second act of his career that has been incredibly I not layered with most amazing movies by any means, but definitely showed him Taken changed his career.
It did.
What was probably even thought of by studio execs if you gave him Truth Serum at the time as just this throwaway January action movie wound up being a complete revitalization of his career because he was a dramatic actor for so long, and then he got older, and then they put him in this Taken movie, and then he went and did everything. Like, he got cast in so many different action movies, whether it's The Gray, whether it's Nonstop, Walk Among the Tombstones, Cold Pursuit, which I think Cold Pursuit and Nonstop are some of his most underrated of recent times.
I think I actually really enjoyed Walk Among the Tombstones for what it was, just because I thought I was expecting like Taken 3 level, and then actually no, the directing in here is actually really really cool. I think David Harbour plays like a child serial killer or something, and
I think he is in that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, dang, this is actually hitting in a different way, in a really dark way too. But regardless, I absolutely agree that this, like going from like Schindler's List and Michael Collins to Taken 1 through 3, and now to this. This is his third act, and what a beautiful way to be in your twilight years. Because I think even before then, there were notable clips online. He was in a scene with, who's that British comedian that gets on my nerves all the time? Just really like weaselly voice, short guy. Anyway, he was in a scene with him where he was playing it extremely straight, as if he didn't know how to do comedy. He was playing himself, a parody of himself, where he was super serious and he was trying to get into like improvisational comedy, and then he just kept messing up the joke about like having AIDS, full blown AIDS, and it was just a really funny scene. I cannot remember the life of me the name of the British comedian. Has a podcast, hasn't really been relative in the past 15 years. But there's that.
The Ricky Gervais.
Thank you, Ricky Gervais, who I'm not very fond of. Then there's also,
Thank you. Now my search engine has Liam Neeson age short.
then there's also a scene in Atlanta where he was caught in some hot water for recounting. He was caught in some hot water, and the backlash was a little unfair. I understand it, but it was a little unfair because he was talking about a time when he was really young and he was prejudiced, and he was reflecting on that. And then I think the internet ran away with that and was more like, oh, he still believes this. Like, no.
We got him.
In that case, he was actually reflecting on why that was bad. But regardless, he did a bit on Atlanta, and that was I saw the scene. I didn't watch much of. I haven't seen much of that show, to be honest, which is a shame because I hear it's good. And then now we wind up with The Naked Gun, and I'm so happy that we have it. It's honestly like a fever dream, because like The Naked Gun is this. This is an overstatement, but it almost feels like The Godfather, in the way that it's just kind of this thing that like you don't kind of touch because it hasn't been touched in so long, and it would just be nice to keep it pure in that sense. Although I would argue that the second and third movies of The Naked Gun weren't really as good as the first, but that's another rant altogether.
Yeah, and it was obviously spawned from that TV show Police Squad, that
Yes.
very short-lived TV show.
That is good. You should watch the police. Everyone here should go watch the police. I don't know if they're available on YouTube, but you should watch the Police Squad and at least the first movie.
It is very fun. I saw the show after I saw the movies, and you could definitely see the basis for it, and they really wanted to do more with it. I think they would have. Who knows if we would have gotten the movies if that show would have lasted longer than I think 6 episodes. But Neeson works in this role for a lot of different reasons beyond being good at deadpan comedy. This movie feels though like sort of a parody in itself of the types of movies Liam Neeson has done recently, and Liam Neeson is smart enough to be in on the joke. Like, he's smart enough to know that he has this straight man quality to him, that people love hearing his monologues. They love hearing him talk. They love hearing him take things very seriously and be placed in like these serious roles that have like completely unserious set pieces. And I think that's a big part of why this movie works. On top of the fact too that like, man, it goes back to the original Naked Guns. It's faithful in so many ways, but this movie is a joke about every 15 to 45 seconds. In an 85-minute movie. Even the credits are basically a stream of consciousness line of jokes. And do they all hit? Of course they don't. But the hit rate is remarkable. It's a machine gun of jokes. The hit rate is remarkable. There's dialogue-driven humor. There's visual humor. Some of my favorites, I don't care. It doesn't get old. I love when there's like a title or something. It's like 45 minutes till the concert, and then a character crashes into the letters or something like that. I never get tired of that. Or when like they manipulate the credits and stuff like that, or they poke at the screen and it screws with it. Reminds me of the opening scene of Rat Race, another Zucker movie, where they play with the opening credits and stuff like that. It's kind of like Too Many Cooks-ish for a modern example. You know what I mean? And then obviously you have Pamela Anderson in this thing. And, I don't give a shit. I've mentioned on the show before, I don't give a shit about Hollywood romances, but I love seeing Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson together now. I think it's adorable. I think Pamela Anderson is talk about somebody else who I think is going to have a very lovely second half of her career. Maybe not as I guess publicly renowned or maybe like in the zeitgeist sort of as Neeson, but I think that I mean, she just did last year. Narrowly made my top 10 was The Last Showgirl, and just a phenomenal movie. And she's really good here. You have Paul Walter Hauser, who is probably, if I had to make a list of top 10 favorite actors at the working today at the moment, Hauser's on the list. As an actor that I think is just so good at playing goofballs, but also like you give him a role like Richard Jewell and he'll knock it out of the park and really kind of blindside you with emotion and how serious he can be. We talked about his movie Luckiest Man in America earlier this year. He's in this thing as Drebin Jr.'s assistant. And then you have an influx of cameos. Everybody from Busta Rhymes to Weird Al Yankovic is in this thing. And it's just great. And I've said this now a couple times this year between One of Them Days and Friendship. It's just so great to laugh in a theater, especially a movie like this that's not trying to do anything but entertain.
Yeah. It's like you said, the jokes are absolutely rapid fire here. And yes, they don't all hit, but I would argue the same thing about the original movie series as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the audacity of this movie to try that again in this, not to say this climate, because, you know, you could argue South Park is doing that kind of to a lesser degree, but that's the style of comedy has not been at least executed so well. Has it been attempted? Probably. And it takes a special kind of mixture of ingredients coming together for that to work, for this to work. And it does work so wonderfully that it's almost refreshing. Like we're rediscovering how to rebuild the Library of Alexandria here. It's almost astounding how. And look, I'm not one of those guys where it's like, oh, we don't know how to make movies anymore. No. I'm really not one of those guys. But it's just that in terms of this style, it's astounding that what's the closest, Steve? What's the closest you can think of? It's probably South Park, right? That's coming to this level of ridiculousness. Because
Probably.
look, I arrived at the theater a little earlier, just by happenstance than I usually do, so I did get to catch the previews, and even before the previews, you know, those commercials, and a couple of them were 10-year. Whatever year anniversary for movies like 20-year for the 40-year-old virgin and Trainwreck.
That's coming back.
Trainwreck.
Coming. Holy shit, Trainwreck's coming back.
I think it's 10-year anniversary.
10-year, yeah.
And
2015.
Those two movies. Look, I honestly, it's been so long. I think both of those movies actually weren't that bad, but every movie tried to emulate those two movies, and particularly that Judd Apatow style. And I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. I don't think they've aged too well either. Maybe those two movies have, but so many others have not. You could tell that by what was that movie, Bros, which was trying to be like, oh, it's like Judd Apatow movie for gay people. It's the first gay comedy, bitch. No, it's not. No, it's fucking not. There've been so many good gay comedies, and this, you know, limp-wristed Manhattan rich boy attempt at it was really not vibing well with anyone, really anyone. And then they go and try and blame it on prejudice. I was like, no, you just kind of made a bad movie with that one. Like Modern Family came out a full 10 years or something before Bros. Anyway, rant over is more so the fact that this movie, I think, is gonna land with a lot of people. I really do hope it does.
I agree. And it's funny too, because, you know, part of the discourse, and I even had you put it in the title of the movie too, or in the title of the episode tonight, is sort of the future of theatrical comedies. Now, I don't think, now this is just me, not to kind of pivot. We are getting close to the intermission, so I guess it's a decent time to bring this up too. And there's more to talk about with Naked Gun. But it's hard because these movies are such a rarity. They feel like they have to make a statement, or they feel like they're in charge of saving something, which isn't a fair expectation for a movie. Mm-hmm. But it's just been at a time when horror is now in one of its new glory renaissance periods right now. Even the slasher era wasn't as versatile with horror as this era is. at a time when you get like we just had superhero movies have this enormous moment and everything like that, and then you have horror, which is in the middle of such a great period in time. You wonder what the future of comedies are. Now, the thing I think there's a lot of things that go into this. I think part of it is I do think the outrage culture has something to do with it. I think studios are less inclined to take risks on big comedies because they realize that putting them in 3,000 theaters or 4,000 theaters is going to make them susceptible to people online that are going to either criticize or make mountains out of molehills with them, especially taking jokes out of context. I do think that's a very real thing. I think a lot of comedians have shifted to podcasts because of that too. I think every comedian's got a fucking podcast these days, and because they know that like David Spade, just as an example, and I'm not calling out David Spade for anything he said, but like somebody like David Spade can make an off-color joke in his podcast, and the ones who are going to listen to it are the ones who are fans of David Spade. It's why something like Cumtown could exist for as long as it could, like sort of uninterrupted, regardless of what you feel like, because it's not really truly part of this mainstream, and you kind of have to look for it or be aware of its host in order to find it, and you like those people to begin with. You're not going to be one to get offended by a joke they make. I think podcasting has just gotten to be a lot more attractive for comedians too. And I also think a big part of the most recent comedies, you mentioned his name, I wanted to mention him too as well, is Judd Apatow. Judd Apatow now has been quiet. I mean, his last really like movie was The Bubble, that crappy COVID era Netflix comedy. Oh. But people forget, though, with Judd Apatow just didn't go right into movie making. Judd Apatow was a stand-up comic. He was a television writer. He was Freaks and Geeks. He was an actor, and he Undeclared was another show that he did. He worked in television a lot and sort of had this kind of ambition to become like a producer, a writer, a big force in mainstream comedy. We don't really have that nowadays. Now, in this era where comedians would, I think, much rather have their own podcast, maybe pitch something to Netflix. Like, look at Tim Robinson. Tim Robinson had a hell of a lot more fun making I Think You Should Leave than I think he would have been like the next Adam Sandler and just doing movie after movie.
Or being on Saturday Night Live even. There's been a lot of think pieces about like, yeah, he was just not the right fit for SNL. And
a lot of people aren't.
I don't know if that was really the case, but the story being written certainly seems that way. And look, the thing is with Judd Apatow, he has to be mentioned if you're talking about American comedy as this grandiose thing and the history of it all. And he had a profound effect on it. That is undeniable. And I don't even think like geez, when was the last time I watched 40-Year-Old Virgin? I remember liking that movie. But I don't think it holds up in the way and there's nothing wrong with a movie not necessarily holding up, right? Some things just have their place in time. You could say that about a bunch of like, I don't know, like does Flashdance hold up as an 80s romance dancing movie? Probably not. But in terms of where, I mean, it's just so funny. It's like this really does this 2025 Naked Gun really feels like we're coming full circle to something. I don't know if that's what the discourse is going to be like. I hope it does, if there's going to be any kind of discourse, as opposed to some other stupid thing. But I notice we're not talking about it because we're saving the movie actual review for after the break, just because we've gone on this lovely tangent that I really enjoy. But good Lord, I cannot wait for the next 5-6 minutes to pass, because this has come full circle. I really do think it has.
Yeah, and the whole point I just wanted to make, just in relation to what I wanted the title of the episode to be too, is just because of the fact I think the more I've thought about it, at least over the last couple of days since digesting Naked Gun, is that we just haven't had somebody like Judd Apatow really emerge. And I'm not saying people aren't trying, but somebody like Judd Apatow who has run the gambit. Part of the reason Apatow was so successful was he was a stand-up comic. He was an actor on TV shows. He wrote for TV shows. He wrote for shows that got canceled, like Undeclared, that were very funny and proved to be like a lasting comic footprint for the next generation. He made connections with people like Seth Rogen, who then became his muse for these larger comedies and stuff. You have to have sort of, it's not just about being funny and being a leader. You kind of have to have like this sort of like multifaceted ambition. Where Apatow was totally fine. Like I feel like he gets the credit for Superbad, but that he'd be probably the first to tell you, being like, "No, I came up with the money for that movie, and I contributed." But that was Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg's idea. That was their movie, and I think he'd be the first to admit that, because Judd Apatow is not really a director. I don't think he's directed more than like 2 or 3 things. Like, and the movies he had, people would argue, weren't some of the better ones. Like, I don't know if he directed it. I know he was a big part of like This Is 40, the knocked up spiritual sequel.
Yeah, which I did not enjoy that one very much.
I like that one more than most people did. I want to say he wrote Get Him to the Greek. Like there was a handful.
Hasn't held up very well in terms of its acting.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Forgetting Sarah Marshall's the one that's remembered of those two, but for obvious reasons. But yeah, like I just feel like there hasn't been that person. And I think Akiva Schaffer too. I think Schaffer has a very specific lane of comedies. Like he did The Watch. Remember that with Ben Stiller and Vince Vaughn, that neighborhood watch movie?
I didn't. Was that good? Was that good? Because I think I kind of dismissed it as like a Brat Pack kind of movie.
I liked it more than most. I didn't love it. It's not great, but one of the reasons I like that movie, I make no quibbles about it, is because it was the American mainstream debut of Richard Ayoade.
Okay,
he's the 4th dude in that movie that people don't know. There's Ben Stiller,
I know
Vince
him,
Vaughn,
yeah.
Jonah Hill, Richard Ayoade, who was on the IT Crowd, the British show.
Yep.
And I was really excited as somebody who watched the IT Crowd before that movie came out, when they were trying to make Ayoade kind of like seeing how he would fit American styles, like American style comedies. I thought he did really well in that movie. And now he's in the new Bad Guys movie. He played the villain in the original Bad Guys, and he's in the sequel too. He's kind of become more of a voice actor. He didn't take off really as a comic actor, which is a shame. But that Watch movie was probably the most quote-unquote mainstream thing Schaffer did, and it didn't really feel, especially coming off a Hot Rod a few years earlier.
Hot Rod is the big one that is now being beloved as it should be as a cult classic, because maybe as a full movie, and I've said this about other movies too, a lot of later Leslie Nielsen works, where it's like the film has great gags that serve very well on YouTube in short clips, but as a cohesive film, maybe not so much.
I do think as a cohesive film, it's pretty good, but it's kind of like The Naked Gun in the way that not everything lands. It throws so much at the wall that not everything lands. Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping, which is now kind of at the level I think Hot Rod was 10 years ago, where people that know it love it. Because the thing fucking bombed in theaters, Pop Star. I saw it in an empty theater when it came out. It did not do well. But I even kind of knew at the time, I said, this thing is too good and too well written to kind of just be forgotten or be viewed as a mistake. This is going to have kind of like, if I could compare it to something, not Hot Rod, something non-Schaffer, I would compare it to probably Idiocracy.
I would compare it to the Police Squad TV show, honestly, to bring it back full circle. We got 60 seconds here, but I absolutely agree that it's just, we keep finding these classics, but they've been right in front of us the whole time.
My whole point, though, is just with this whole brief monologue, too, just bringing it back to Schaffer and The Naked Gun, was just the fact that, like, I don't think Schaffer has the aspiration to be that kind of Judd Apatow figure. I think he's the kind of guy who, like, especially now, he's got no reason to. If he doesn't see a great concept or doesn't see a great angle, he's not going to do it. Yeah. Like, he's not just going to pump out stuff to pump out stuff. He takes his time. He's only directed 5 movies over the last 20 years. Be that as it may, we will come back and talk more explicitly about Naked Gun here, the brand new Liam Neeson reboot, sequel to the Naked Gun franchise. It's a gruesome twosome tonight on Sleepless with Steve. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back really soon with this Zoom-sponsored intermission. back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We come back talking about Naked Gun. Actually, going to talk about Naked Gun now too.
Do we have a
and
movie review or something? Yeah.
It's the second week in a row. Something about comedies. They're so rare nowadays. We just talk about the external relevance and stuff. But unlike last week with Happy Gilmore 2, this is actually a good movie. If the roles were reversed, I'm really glad Happy Gilmore 2 is on Netflix and this is in theaters. Now, more people would have seen The Naked Gun if it was on Netflix, but I'm glad I had to get up and go to the theater to see The Naked Gun.
There's a kind of reverence for it where it's like, this deserves it. Yeah.
Absolutely, too. What say you? Where do you want to take the direction of Naked Gun? What stood out to you the most?
Man, yeah, where do we go from here? I think that for all of the hype that we have been giving this movie for the past 40 minutes, give or take 45 minutes, it's just a good old time at the theater, man. That's just what it is. It's a solid time. And again, it's that same feeling. It recaptured the magic of the originals for me. It really truly did. The only way they could have done it further was by putting it putting a filter over an 80s film grain over it or something. But I'm glad it didn't do that. And I'm glad, as he addresses right at near the beginning, while talking to his dead father, right, Frank Drebin Sr., he's talking to him. It's like, man, if only I can make sure that I fill in your footsteps well, while also bringing something new to the table that's refreshing and pleasing everyone, or something to that effect. And it's like, yep, we are so back. We are so back. The jokes here are pretty much as you expect them to be. And those first 10 minutes, it almost felt surreal. I don't know how you felt, but there's a certain kind of rhythm and a certain kind of world and a certain kind of language that this movie speaks that took me a couple minutes to like adjust to. Did you feel that at all?
Yeah, in a way, because it's been so long since we got something that was really like this, and a movie where, like, as stupid as it is, like, we haven't talked about the plot, and I don't think we will, because the plot's really irrelevant. It's just
truly is.
Not even Naked Gun. You know what it reminds me of? Catherine and I just watched this. Some of it we rewatched a little bit on TV. Reminds me a lot of Wayne's World, where Wayne's World has a sentence long plot, but it's really just conduit for jokes and chemistry and hanging out, and that's kind of what this movie is. It was fun to see this movie too with Catherine, who didn't have a lot of I guess sort of a connection to Naked Gun, because she loved it, and that was fun to watch too, because it was like, I have a good idea what to expect, and this movie still surprised me in a lot of ways, but I was like, it was fun to watch it with somebody too who maybe didn't have the connection as me, because I'm like, there's just not much like this that gets made anymore. Again, it's something that's also too not trying to really set up a franchise or anything, is just really funny, and the kind of movie too, for as dumb as it is, for as silly as it prolifically is, it's also one of those movies that you still it incentivizes you listening because of the dialogue, and just sort of, if you're not listening, the dialogue and the jokes, a lot of them are delivered with such deadpan that you could miss them if you weren't paying attention. Like, one of my favorite lines in this movie is between Liam Neeson and Paul Walter Hauser, and it's when Liam Neeson is when they're walking around the office and they keep getting handed cups of coffee and stuff like they do in police procedure. And they get bigger and bigger. And Liam Neeson says, "You can't fight City Hall." And Paul Walter Hauser, with his hushed cheek chewing, "No, it's a building."
I didn't even catch that one, honestly. And it's the magic of the minutia of it. It's a fine skill. All acting is, but with comedy especially. Oh man, it's a lovely, highly technical ballerina dance. If you're treating it seriously, which everyone here is on every level, and like I said, I needed to adjust to it for a minute, and I'm not proclaiming this to be like this extremely intelligent thing. I think it's a little smarter than the average comedy that you think of when you hear the word comedy in the past couple decades, but it's not that smart, and that's the beauty of slapstick. It gets screwball slapstick, right? We were joking earlier about how was that podcast clip? I don't know where it's from, but it was like, yeah, if you want to impress a woman, throw in a screwball comedy into your letterbox favorites, right? And I'm like, me over here with Arsenic and Old Lace, dropping that every few months.
Teacher's pet, Clark Gable. Real quick too. It kind of reminds me of something Weird Al once said too on like the Dan Rather show or something. He was talking about Dan, and Dan Rather's so serious. He goes,
Yes.
"You have a song called Albuquerque that is 11 minutes long." And is kind of a lot of run-ons and just tangents. And then Weird Al goes, he goes, I don't want to give myself a whole lot of credit, but I feel like some of my songs, you have to be a little smart to be that stupid. And that's like how I feel about this. Quick question too, because I have one immediately. What was your favorite set piece or sequence in this movie? And maybe in a more broad sense, or maybe in a more narrow sense, what's the clip you can't wait to watch on YouTube again?
Okay, if specifically, I'm hearing your language exactly. Set piece / sequence, it probably has to be the gag where, and I'm spoiling all of these, I don't care. The gag where Liam Neeson is stuck in a car, an electric vehicle, and he has to escape from it. So he shoots the windshield out, smashes the windshield out, as you would do, but then he runs into a family of like a massive gaggle of balloons. So he's stuck in the car with balloons. All right, that's decent. That's a decent joke. Then it's like bee collectors are crossing the street, like a beehive. So then you get bees and balloons. All right, that's pretty funny. And it's like, oh, is the third thing going to be like, I don't know, lava or I don't know, something crazy? No, the third thing he runs into, if I'm remembering this joke correctly, is, the classic gag of glass. But it's not just glass movers. It's literally a windshield that perfectly fits the car that he's in, so that it hits the car perfectly. So, that's already funny. But then it all builds up to this beautiful formula of a joke where it's like, oh, now he's trapped in the car with bees and balloons, and the balloons are going off around him because they're bees, and it's like they're. And again, that tells me that wasn't just slapped together, right? There was a mathematical equation that made it really funny to me.
To be at the writers' table, like he's got to run in. We got to do a trifecta joke here. He's got to run into 3 groups of people crossing the street, and then you get balloons. You get the bees to pop the balloons, and then you get the windshield to trap him again. Like that probably took like an hour or two, like to really come up with and to nail down just how perfect it is. I love that one. I think I speak for Catherine too. My favorite personally is and I don't want to say it. I don't want to say like it's supposed to be a fucking Tesla. Is what it's supposed to be.
This whole thing
the
is
electric car.
And I would like to reserve a few minutes later on talking about how this is the movie conservatives say that they want, but they secretly don't because they don't know what they're talking about. But go ahead.
In a very way, given who this movie kind of takes a lot of thinly veiled shots at but the scene with the electric vehicle with Paul Walter on the Hauser on the outside, and then Liam Neeson learning the ways of these new electric police vehicles and such, and then like Paul Walter Hauser, like it's the classic, gets his hand stuck in it or whatever and whatnot, and then they rip and then he goes forward and rips the charging stations off the docket and then rips the wall of the police station off the wall, and then the way Liam Neeson looks in when the criminals start escaping and Paul Walter Hauser's guys, and the way Liam Neeson looks in the rear view and just goes, oh, this place is falling apart, man. And that is easily my favorite sequence of the whole damn thing.
And there are you mentioned earlier, you need to pay attention to this movie, right? This isn't turn your brain off comedy necessarily. Some jokes are just so classic that you can't miss it. But some of them, it's like, no, if you pay attention, there are like no less than 4 or 5 big callbacks that really pay off if you're paying attention. And like maybe even more, you could say, because there are character threat. You can't argue that Frank Drebin in either movies isn't a character, right? He's not inconsistent. Oh, sure. I would say Liam Neeson's Frank Drebin Jr., is more consistent of a character, because I think in the sequels of the original trilogy, they were just throwing shit at the wall by then, give or take, how you want to talk about the quality there. But with Liam Neeson's take on it, there are through lines in his character where he is like, why is he so obsessed with like mid 2000s things? because he talks about like Janet Jackson, and it's like, no, that's still important to me. And there's like, I can't remember what they are, but he mentions other things from the 2000s. It's like
Fergie.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the big other set piece. It's like Black Eyed Peas. Who's thinking about the Black Eyed Peas in 2025? And that's funny.
I was upset. I was still upset about the Janet Jackson Super Bowl. That was 20 years ago. Not to me, it wasn't.
and like the trope about how he's like constantly complaining about the city, but also like why is he obsessed with two? And like it fuses together. There's the trope of the old grizzled veteran detective that hates, things aren't like the old days.
Things aren't like they used to be.
And then it's like, oh, the old days were Janet Jackson. Like in like this Janet Jackson Super Bowl, the old days were Black Eyed Peas, and it's like it's all this massive joke. It's clever because it's like it's making fun of the trope, and it's also like tapping into that 2000s nostalgia that weirdly we do have. Like, yeah, that is vintage now. That was 20 years ago, and that's crazy how that's vintage. Yeah,
And the Naked Gun hasn't gotten dated or anything like that. Now maybe some of the references in the originals hasn't gotten dated, even as a formula, because the thing that the as much as our society has changed since Leslie Nielsen was in those movies, the one thing that has not changed about police procedurals on television and in movies is that they rarely offer, if ever offer, you think about like NYPD Blue, and there's still like Chicago PD, there's a million of these, your Blue Bloods and all these different cop shows. They never offer in any kind of humor, despite how they're so rigid and they're like so parochial that they don't invite any kind of humor, even based on the absurdity. I used to have this running joke. My dad loves NYPD Blue with Dennis Franz. Watched that show growing up. And it was so, we were watching an episode one time years ago, and I go, I already know who did it. It's the Suarez guy. And then my dad goes, why? And I go, it's always the Mexican in this show. It always is. It always is. Because then Dennis Franz has to interrogate him and say something like, we'll send you back to Tijuana or whatever country you're from. Like, I'm like, it's always the guy. It's not O'Donnell. It's Suarez. It's Gonzalez. I know the fucking criminals in this show. But that's how these shows are, though. They're predictable, and they have no like angle for humor. And even when they go on long, like 8-9 seasons, they don't recognize the tropes of themselves. They still play it so serious, and the Naked Gun just takes the piss out of all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I would even go so far as to say that the Naked Gun stays timeless because the police are also timeless in all the fucked up shit that they do.
Yes.
And in that there is, look, I don't think you have to. There are like a solid 2 to 3 gags, including the one that truly made me laugh, bust my ass, cackling in the theater for like a solid like 15 seconds, like count it out loud, 15 seconds that made me laugh. Of like, this is pretty spicy anti-police. It's not very controversial because it's all true, but like it's like it's very spicy anti-police kind of humor here. One big gag in the credits. But my absolute favorite joke of the night, absolute favorite, I'm going to retell it here and do it injustice, so please go watch this movie. But it's like Frank Drebin goes up to a bartender and it's like, hey, I know you. You're that cop that roughed up my brother. I've roughed up thousands of criminals in my day. You shot him. That's about 100. In the back while he was running away. 50. He was white. Oh, you must be Sam's brother or something. And it's like, holy shit. That look, that
was good too.
That is the kind of humor that conservatives say that they want that we don't get anymore, but they secretly don't want that because they don't know what they're talking about. That's pointed humor, and it's just a funny formula. Take the police out of it, the whatever. Just the blank slate template of that joke is beautiful, and it is in itself,
and it factors in suspense too. It factors in suspense too of like the reveal and everything like that. So it even plays by like typical like comedy reveal tropes, and that's why this thing is just so smart too. Now there's a lot of great one-liners in this thing too. I like the voiceover when Pamela Anderson is first introduced, when her character's first introduced. And a bottom that would make any toilet beg for the brown.
It's like, who writes that? What the? And it's the fact that this is Academy Award winning Liam Neeson, the guy who made me cry my eyes out in the closing scenes of Schindler's List. Where it's like, I could have saved more people, and now he's telling me this. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what a world we live in. What, like, oh my God.
The only negative I have, and it's not even a big negative, it's a personal preference. You probably can see where I'm going with this too. I would have. There's about a 40-minute stretch where Paul Walter Hauser disappears.
Yes.
Like, and I think he's so germane to this movie and the tone of this movie. But the good news is, though, and the reason I don't think it's a lasting negative is he comes back around. I love when they're at the big venue, and he has to be the beer vendor. And then during like the reconciliation scene, when the quote unquote plot device is inactivated and they're all celebrating together and he's drinking the beer with the kids. Like, this is exactly what he was made for as an actor.
Punching children because they're all going crazy. It's like, all right, yeah, we're so back. No, that is a marked difference in style from the originals. So the original Leslie Nielsen, he plays Frank Drebin more wide-eyed, even more clueless. He's less violent. He does kill people in the originals, I'm pretty confident. But he's less violent. He's at least more outwardly dumb, and he has bigger reaction shots. Just look up any picture of Leslie Nielsen. There's like a 50% chance he's doing his wide-eyed stare and like, gaping mouth, and that's just comedy. That's just comedy in its purest form to me.
He's a more expressive actor than Neeson.
His reaction shots are like, what, 20% of the Naked Gun, honestly, or like his like clueless shots or whatever. And if I remember correctly, Liam Neeson doesn't quite do that as much. He's more violent, which is funny because it leans itself more to like, oh, his past as a Taken action star, right? And then he isn't quite reacting as harshly. He stays more in character throughout pretty much this whole ordeal, if I'm remembering correctly. And that is and yes, the biggest change is that I believe it has less to do. Whoa! It has less. He brings in less of the gang with him, right? So you get less of, I forget the original name, but his sidekick with the gray hair, and then also O.J. Simpson, right? The actual squad is there's less involvement from them, I think, throughout the whole ordeal, but they come back around. Honestly, if I were to see a sequel, I think I would be more interested. You have more opportunity there to tap into Paul Walter Hauser, that big trailer reveal with the O.J. Simpson joke. I think people were predicting that black character who does the reaction shot of O.J. on the wall to him being a character, but I don't know.
I thought he would have a bigger part.
Yeah, exactly. I'm mad at all that he isn't, but I was like, oh, okay, cool. But yet, honestly, the Pamela Anderson, her character plays probably the biggest secondary role here.
Definitely.
And I'm fine with that. You can go anywhere with this. I have no investment other than get the jokes good here. Joe, I think he's joining us. I just noticed in the chat he said the snowman joke. And I have a point to make there. Not even a point, but just an observation to make. I don't know if he's going to join proper. But there's a joke there where it's like, I don't necessarily remember if there was that big of a cutaway in the Naked Gun originals. I think there was, actually. There were a couple of like extended cutaways, which was in itself the joke while also referencing something. The snowman thing, I'm pretty sure that's like, okay, that's Lonely Island. That's their influence. Yes. That's their DNA slowly creeping into this movie, which I was fine with. I was totally cool with. It wasn't the biggest gag for me personally, but I appreciated the joke and I get what they were doing.
I liked it, and I like how you said that too. That felt like the Lonely Island too, because it's basically a music video. It's basically a music video, and it carries a story. It carries like a self-contained story in it with the snowman. It also reminded me of the horror movie Jack Frost, which I really always I appreciate.
I was thinking that too. Yeah.
Yeah, is Joe going to join us? Here he is. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I saw you guys were still on live, and I just got out of my meeting, so I was like, I'll just join in audio wise.
Joe, biggest gag of the night of the naked. Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, so I love the snowman one, but when I was really thinking about it, I love when Frank Drebin is replaying his body cam footage and his dash cam footage. And it's just him eating the chili dog, and it's just going through him throughout the whole day. I love when they cut back, and I hate to spoil it, but there's so many jokes in this movie that they're rapid fire. I couldn't possibly give away all of them because I probably didn't catch all of them from how hard I was laughing and the audience, but also how quick and fast they come by, including sight gags. But for me, it's just like the scene where he's just talking to that criminal, and then the guy goes, "Don't do it, man. Don't do it." When he's about to eat another chili dog. And then Frank Drebin's in the back of the room, and he's just like, that was like my fifth one of the day. Like, it's just like, oh my God, man. So many good moments in this movie.
If I'm gonna steal that line when I'm in a situation where I need to use the restroom and I'm driving. Come on, Frank, you're gonna ruin another suit.
There's like also just other things like, I mean, this is a run on gag throughout the whole movie, but it's Frank Drebin Jr.'s like noir like narration. And the one that just made me do a spit take was it's just like, she had a bottom that will make you beg for the brown. Dude, I was in tears hearing that.
that's the one I think that's gonna get the most replays because it's so out of pocket.
And it's delivered with such deadpan conviction. I guess the last thing I'll say too to parlay into closing thoughts, and Joe, you're welcome to give them too. I will say that it's a little. I just Googled this just for the hell of it, so I'm just seeing this now. I haven't had a chance to read the full article other than skim it. But I said in my review, I said I really feel like I feel like almost everybody who worked on the original Naked Gun movies would really appreciate this movie. I think Nielsen would. I think Nielsen absolutely would love this thing. I really do believe that. What's kind of sad, but also like they clearly go for the headline here. It's original Naked Gun director David Zucker refuses to watch new movie. And you read about it though, and basically he says though, he said, and this is his quote, David Zucker. He said, "I'm excited about it because it just shows that there's a strong market for comedy in movie theaters and spoof in particular. People are liking it, which is great. I really like the director, and I just couldn't wish him more well. I texted him already saying, I hear the reviews are great and it's tracking well. We'll probably get together when the smoke clears. But I've told Akiva that I have no intention to see it. That's not to say that he didn't actually end up doing a good movie. I don't really think I could help with it. I turned down a producer credit, and it's just not what I would have done. But granted, I also don't watch sequels to movies that I've done. And that's fair. I don't think he's singling out the movie. I think that Zucker just realizes, like, I feel like Zucker is one of those people too that like he wouldn't enjoy it just on the basis that it wouldn't have gone in the directions that he would have done it. But I do like how he's not like, this is a bastardization. These people have no
Yeah,
talent. They don't know what we went through. I think it's a very measured response that the headline doesn't do justice to.
I forget where I mentioned this. Was it with? I don't know if it was with you guys, but the thing with there is no magic formula to make a Lego sequel work. There really isn't. It's like, oh, we got the original director, we got the original writer, we got the original actors, all the cast and crew back. Sometimes they just end up sucking, right? So with Zucker, it's like, hey, good for him. He was able to let go because if it went the way he did, there is a decent chance, judging by the other things he has his credit on in the past 20 years, it's like probably would have ended up well. Sometimes this needs a fresh coat of paint. Just sometimes, and you cannot predict. You cannot predict who it's going to work well with and who it's not. I'm failing to give an example right now, but there's a couple movies in particular where it's like they got it unlocked. This is going to be a hit. Nope, just a wet fart, and it should have worked, but it just didn't.
No, I thoroughly.
There's examples like George Miller. Oh, sorry.
No, go on, Joe. Go on. Go on, Joe.
There's like good examples where it's like George Miller with Mad Max Fury Road. Like that worked perfectly. Like he was able to come in, take it, write it, direct it, all that, and it felt like he didn't miss a beat. Even like as old of a man as he is, even with Furiosa as well. It's like that. But then you have examples where it's like Joseph Starbesky, and it's like he comes in with Top Gun, and he brings in a new writer. And yeah, you can argue like, okay, well, they brought in Tom Cruise. It's like, that's really the only link though to the original source material is just him, as well as like, like just, the setting and everything. But it's like, he came in with a fresh idea and everything. When you also compare to like other ones that didn't work out, I mean, you look at Ridley Scott when it comes to some of the alien ones he's made.
That's a big one.
Not that great. But then you have Romulus, which felt like, oh, this is refreshing. Like we finally have an alien movie, and it feels actually a bit refreshing to see. And it is tied to like the original movies in some ways. I mean, you can keep like you're saying, Dom. There's no guarantee with any of it. You can get the original people to come back, and it could suck. It could be amazing, or you can have the new up and coming people who like Final Destination, like they were fans of the franchise, and then they came in with Bloodlines and had something unique to do with it. There's never a guarantee on it. It really is just like it's just gambling on a chance, really.
The big thank you for reminding me, because it's another George Romero, where it's like, oh man, those first 3 zombie movies that he did, Night, Day, Dawn, Day of the Dead. And then he did a bunch of others, and we don't talk about those
Survival
straight to DVD.
Survival of the Dead.
Yeah, that's all right. We're good.
Yeah, there comes a time, I think, when they're like it makes a lot more sense to have somebody else do it. And I think Zucker recognizes that deep down, because Zucker hasn't done anything. I think An American Carol was his last movie, which was a Michael Moore parody, which it shows you the direction he went with his movies and such like that. But The Naked Gun, though, I think this is a lovely time at the movies. I'm really glad that it's doing well. I think it'll probably stick around throughout the remainder of the month too. And I said earlier too, Joe, in the show, I said I don't think that it's fair nor is it accurate to really place the future of theatrical comedies or comedies in general on this movie. But I do think that, like, not to rehash what I said about Apatow, and I just don't feel like there's another person who is like as versatile or as much of a Renaissance man with that kind of level of ambition and that level of access, who's going to have the ability to kind of produce and spearhead a lot of these comedies that we miss in theaters. But I do think that this movie, though, it's so wildly successful. I hope, if nothing else, it really shows that Akiva Schaffer now, who's by no means a rookie director, this is his 5th movie, that this guy is really a great voice, and that he all his movies, even the one that is like the more critically maligned of the 5 in The Watch from 2012, all of his movies are successful in the way that they like stick to a concept, and that they have a high level concept. They kind of go where the puck isn't. They rely on absurdity, deadpan dialogue, witticisms. In the case of Chippendale Rescue Rangers, a lot of callbacks that are very lovingly and affectionately placed. And I think that's what this Naked Gun is. It's a very affectionate movie, and it's a very successful comedy. For me, it's an easy 3.5 out of 4 stars. We'll go Dom, then Joe. I know, Joe, you weren't part of the review, but you'll still give your closing thoughts. You can end the show.
This is a 4-star movie for me, simply because it sparks something within me that I rarely find myself like with legacy sequels. Well, I don't know. Would you consider it a legacy sequel? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would.
A reboot more so, maybe. I don't know. However you define the terminology, it has something. It has a legacy behind it, and I'll always give credit for just executing it well, just making a good movie, and congratulations, you've fulfilled the franchise. 2, it was carrying something on its back, whether it wanted to or not. And yes, we explain, we put that pressure on it unfairly, but it has it, and it carries it so well in a way that injects new life into the franchise while maintaining to its roots, right? It's like that. It really is hitting all those perfect points of what people want when they see a reboot. But I will give credit in a way that most people are not going to talk about, not going to think about. It's a very blue sky take, right? But it's one that bears mention. Not to say that the originals were pro cop or anything, right? But it is policing is such a hot topic here in post 2020, as it should be, in my opinion. It should be scrutinized, and for a movie, like the way we examine media, right, with propaganda, which is a legitimate thing. Again, I have watched 6+ seasons of Blue Bloods. That shit really is shoving down a worldview down your throat, and most cop shows do without you realizing it. That is the insidious part of propaganda. You are not immune to propaganda. Propaganda happens when you're not thinking about it. But regardless, yeah, man, this movie's quite honestly anti-cop, or at least cop takedown in 2 to 3, if not more, pivotal gags. I have to compliment. And, you know, even if they didn't include those, that would have been a political statement in and of itself during these times. But yeah, and not only were they, it's like, oh, haha, cops bad at their job. It did so in very pointed ways that I very much, again, like I said, my favorite joke of the night. And it wasn't even that big of a slapstick joke. It wasn't a slapstick joke. It was perfect writing. That's what it was. And it's like, we are so back. We are here. We're not just so back. We're moving forward. And part of me wants this movie to not have any sequel or anything else to it, just because you wrapped it up in a neat little bow. But if they do go forward with it, I have confidence in this team. 4 out of 4.
Hello?
Yes.
What say you, Joe?
Sorry. Yeah, man. You know, I gotta go back and update my Letterboxd rating because I did see this movie twice. I gotta say, I have so much respect to this movie for being a PG-13 comedy, because I feel like PG-13 comedies are harder to make. You know, earlier this year, One of Them Days came out, and I love that movie. It's rated R, though, and it definitely utilizes the rated R to its advantage with some of the gags they do and gross out humor and everything, and of course swearing and whatnot. But then you can also see other comedies like Ricky Stenicki on Amazon with John Cena and Zac Efron, or, you know, even the Hangover movies, if I had to choose a more popular example. And it's like, it's not to say that those movies are bad, but they definitely have a crutch to them having the R rating, so they could say, you know, the F word, the S word, all this stuff rapidly all the time. And there was just a period of time too where I felt like, you know, as the comedy itself was dying out of theaters, rated R comedies were being put on the Netflix, but they just kind of felt more and more lazy. And it's like, damn, why the hell is the only PG-13 comedies we're getting any more of is just Sandler's Happy Madison Productions? And we saw how last week went with the sequel to Happy Gilmore 2. So I tip my cap to this movie, especially for being a PG-13 comedy and still finding ways for me just to laugh throughout the whole damn movie. It's not seen often with PG-13 comedies that they can have this much of a hit ratio. And yeah, I didn't laugh at every joke, but I don't even remember the jokes I didn't laugh at. I always remembered plenty of jokes I did laugh at. I love all the performances across the board and everything. I really like how the movie was shot as well. I started noticing that my second viewing is that, like, this movie is actually shot really damn well for a comedy. And I just gotta say, man, like, what Akiva Schaffer, I feel like the guy's been getting better and better with each movie he releases. I think this is by far his best film he's made. And for the longest time too, I thought Pop Star Never Stop Stopping was going to be that for me, and he upped himself here. For me as well, I gotta say, like, upon a second viewing and everything, and I gotta go update the Letterboxd rating, this is a 4 out of 4 star movie for me as well. I love this movie. I love quoting it with so many people that I've seen it with so far. And I want to go see it a third time. It so helps that this movie is just 80 minutes. It makes it so easy for me to be like, you know what? I'll go down to the theater right down the street from me and pay the matinee price. Because you know what? This is only going to take an hour and 20 minutes tops of my day. I don't really have to, like, you know, I can go grab lunch or something after, whatever. It's not going to eat up my day. And, like, I can't wait to own it and just throw it on the background, just throw it on whenever I just need to listen to, like, something, and just laugh at the dialogue being talked about.
Is it too early to start the campaign for The Naked Gun for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars?
No, do it.
No, it's August.
Get it going.
I think Paramount should put some money behind that. Make it Best Adapted Screenplay.
I really think so too.
And I think I think that by doing that, now I would still argue right now that Friendship deserves a Best Picture nomination that it won't get. But at the same time, I think Man, if you want to give this movie something, I'm not saying it should win it, but give it a nomination at least. I think that there's merit to that. I think that there's actual merit that this movie could get a best adapted screenplay nomination. I think it's the furthest of long shots here. I wish they had like a draft. I wish they had like a Draft Kings, like a Cinephile Kings for like for like wagering on movies and stuff like that. You know, because I would be making I would lose so much fucking money on stupid stuff like this. But I think there would be merit.
I would also say like Liam Neeson, like, and I'm not saying Oscar here, but the Globes, throw him in for best actor in a musical or comedy, because he was making me laugh my ass off so much throughout it.
That might be more realistic. In itself too. Yeah, her too. We talked about her a little bit during the show as well too. I love her scat singing in this thing too.
Dude, that scene. As someone who goes to jazz clubs regularly, like near weekly, I'm like, yeah, that's really what people think this is.
I'm glad that's our show tonight. I'm glad that I got I'm glad you showed up, Joe. I'm glad it was mainly me and Dom for the Naked Gun. I'm glad we did such a good review. I'm glad Joe got to give his thoughts too at the end. Joe, next week we're the gruesome twosome for Weapons. The new Zach Kreger movie.
Steps out of his truck.
I don't know if you timed that, but that was incredible. Next week, though, Weapons. It's Joe and I for the new Zach Kreger movie.
Yep. You two have fun now.
I will go into into explicit detail with my review when it makes my top 10 list. I will go into explicit gruesome detail for you, Dom.
Thank you
for what you miss with this movie. I'm so fucking pumped. You know,
I am too, man. I'm seeing it on Friday. It has gone from being like one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I know like we're all almost done with the year, but it is not my most anticipated like release for the rest of the year. I can't wait to go see it.
Same here. I want to see why Jordan Peele fired his agent for losing this movie. That's the impetus behind it. No pun intended, but to quote the great singer and rapper Rumor, every sleepless night led me to where I am tomorrow at the theater to see Weapons. It was great to see you both today. Really appreciate you making the time. Naked Guns in theaters. Check it out. Next week, Joe and I are back for a review of Weapons, the new Zach Kreger movie, as we talked about a little before the show. Until then, for Dominic Guanzon, thank you again for hosting the show tonight, my friend.